It seems like the country is more divided than ever and that we can't agree on anything. But there's one thing Americans are overwhelmingly in support of. We want money out of our politics. Polling shows that 81% of Democrats and 79% of Republicans want the parties to work together to reduce the influence of money in politics, with 81% of Americans saying that money in politics is a bigger problem than ever before. It was also one of the top 5 most important issues for Democrats and independents and top 6 for Republicans going into 2016. And that's because it affects literally every issue. Want action on climate change? Too bad. The oil and gas industry spent over $102 million on purchasing politicians last election cycle. How about regulating Wall Street so they don't crash the economy again? Not so fast. The financial industry gave $273 million in donations to federal candidates in 2016. Gun control? Maybe just that? Because children are being slaughtered and 75% of Americans want stricter gun laws? Forget about it. The NRA and other gun groups spent a record $54 million in 2016 to ensure that wouldn't happen. So why is no one in power talking about it? Well, because that's the issue in itself. Our politicians are literally bought off by that money, so they're not going to bring it up. $6.5 billion was the final amount spent in the 2016 presidential and congressional elections. That's enough to fix the Flint, Michigan lead pipe problem 30 times over, or give every public school teacher a $2,000 raise. Conveniently, the only politicians who seem to care about money in politics get their money not from large contributors or corporations, but from small individual donors.
A real issue is that our campaign finance system, and let me underline the word, don't misquote me on this, it is a corrupt system.
And since most of our politicians aren't bringing up this issue that polling shows is one of the American people's top priorities, well then the media should, right? Not so much. Campaign advertisements are a multi-billion-dollar industry with $4.4 billion spent on broadcast TV ads in 2016. Our corrupt campaign finance system is profitable for the media, which is why they don't bring up the topic, except when discussing their profit margins. Now ousted CBS executive Les Moonves said that super PACs may be bad for America, but they're very good for CBS. Thanks for being honest, I guess? But how did it get this bad? Well, it's a long story, but it boils down to this. In 1976, the Supreme Court ruled in Buckley v. Vallejo that spending money is an expression of speech under the Constitution. Basically, that money equals speech. At the same time, the courts had ruled for a few decades that corporations have personhood rights, the right to property, to contract, etc. But from Buckley v. Vallejo on, they had free speech rights, and it was cemented in the infamous 2010 Citizens United case, which connected the two. Money is speech plus corporations are people equals corporations can speak by spending money in elections. And when money is speech, that means that the more money you have, the more speech you have. And if corporations are people who have a lot more money than you and I, that means that corporations have a lot more speech than the rest of us. It's patently absurd, and it's completely destroying our democracy. Don't believe me? A 2014 Princeton study found that when the preferences of economic elites and the stands of organized interest groups are controlled for, the preferences of the average American appear to have only a minuscule, near zero, statistically non-significant impact upon public policy. Yeah, our democracy is non-existent right now. Let's not sugarcoat it. But there is good news. Things are changing for the better. Since Senator Bernie Sanders forced the issue onto the national stage during the presidential election, Democrats have been forced to act. Senators Cory Booker, Kamala Harris, Kirsten Gillibrand, and more followed Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren's lead and rejected corporate PAC money. Elizabeth Warren has introduced an anti-corruption bill targeting corporate donors and the revolving lobbyist door. High-profile candidates like Beto O'Rourke and the 26 Justice Democrats like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Rashida Tlaib, and James Thompson running in the general election are all refusing corporate PAC money. And there will be even more candidates like them as long as we keep this movement going. You can do your part to help in this fight by joining us, the only media that will actually call out politicians and their corruption and support candidates who will work to end that corruption. Join the fight by becoming a member of the Young Turks at tyt.com/join. You'll always be at home here at TYT, the home of progressives.